and goes towards the Gulf of Aqaba. So that whole journey for day and night, wherever they wandered, but they were protected both day and night. Night is a picture of spiritual darkness. Daylight, they still needed to have protection, because that's a picture of spiritual enlightenment. We sang the song here a little bit ago. This little light of mine. But this was God's light. Do you get it? It was God's light. He's guiding you exactly where you are today in the wilderness that you're walking in. We're walking in a world that is not conducive to God's way of life. We have to fight that journey. Keep hanging on to the truths. Fight for the truth of God. We had a little bit of that last night in the Bible study. We need to stand on the truth. Have a foundation that doesn't rock. A foundation where we don't slip. And that foundation is our Messiah and His Word. So that journey is through the wilderness there, as you can see. In actuality, it's not a very pleasant journey. We rode up here, some of us, for quite a few hours on a hardtop road in an air-conditioned car. They were walking, not only alone, but they had their livestock and everything else to consider. And they didn't have potties along the way. They had to make sure they had all the conveniences, and yet without the conveniences. You know, we take for granted what God has really done for us, I believe. How do we do that? Because it's so easy today. We don't... See, that's the thing about this spiritual walk that we're on. If we didn't have to fight for the truth, that wouldn't mean nothing to you. We have to fight for it. Put up resistance. And realize that it takes something greater than you or I to maintain the walk, that pillar of cloud in the fire. Exodus 14:1, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, that they turn and encamp before Pharaoh, or before Pi-hahiroth, and before Milgel, and the sea, and over against Baal-zerah, before it shall be encamped by the sea. For Pharaoh will say, The children of Israel are encamped in the land, and the wilderness has shut them in. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he shall follow after them. Why? Why? He tells us that what? That we have, let's see, where was I? My eyes are working overtime here. You follow after them, and I have honor upon Pharaoh and upon his host, that the Egyptians may know that I am the Lord, and they did so. So what's the point? Why is Satan coming after us? So that we can fail? No, it's the opposite. That God can show His mighty working hand in our lives. Satan, get behind me. You have no power over my children. None. You can poke them and kick them and squeeze them, but they are mine. Very interesting. And he made ready his chariots and took his people with him. And he took 600,000 chariots. You know, that's a lot. A lot of fighting power against an army that supposedly didn't have any tools. Oh, but they did. They did. They had the pillar of cloud and the fire. Interesting. See, the enemies, our enemies, even the physical ones, they don't see the power that we have behind us and within us. And they think they have a chance. I actually had a demon tell me one time, last night I thought I had a chance, but today I hate you. Because I took a stand for the truth of God. That's where my power was. It made me stop and think. I probably wasn't really thinking right last night. I didn't have my guard, spiritual guard up that pillar. I wasn't looking in the right place. But when they said, I hate you today, and the person almost climbed the wall, it's very interesting to me what is going on in the spiritual world. When I looked up behind me, I spiritually thought that if somebody was standing there about 12 foot tall, because of the way the demon acted, there was an angel behind me. And that angel says, keep your cotton picking fingers off of my beloved one. Very interesting. He does that for you and I. A lot of times we don't realize it. We don't even know what's going on. But he sent them there to harass you and I so that we can show the power of God in our lives. That's what it's about. It's not about losing the battle. It's about destroying the enemy's confidence. But the Egyptians pursued after them, and all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh, that's verse 9, and his horsemen, and his army, and they all overtook them and encamped them by the sea. Interesting. Encamped by the sea. Water again. Very interesting. Water, no way out. Way it looked physically. But there was a mighty way out with a mighty hand of God. And when Pharaoh drew near, verse 10, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes and beheld the Egyptians marching after them, and they were so afraid, not just a little bit. Put yourself right there. You're standing there, nowhere to go. Guess what? Nowhere to go. You can see the armies coming. I got a picture here later and I'll show you what it was kind of like geographically. But what happened? The children cried unto the Lord, and they said unto Moses, because there were no graves in Egypt, that thou hast taken us away to die in the wilderness. Wherefore hast thou dealt thus with us to carry us forth out of Egypt? Wow. Isn't that interesting? To die. They thought it would be better. Why did you take us out here? Have you ever said in your trial, where are you taking me, God? This don't seem right. I've said it. I've said, I don't have the strength to do this. But you do. You can bring me through. And he always has. And he always will. They were so afraid. Not just a little bit, but so afraid. And the children of Israel cried out unto the Lord. Verse 11, and they said unto Moses, because there were no graves in Egypt, hast thou taken us away to die in the wilderness? Wherefore hast dealt with us to carry us forth out of Egypt? Why did you even call me? If this is what's happening? Because I have a plan. And the plan is for your benefit and for the kingdom of God's benefit. Because I need you. I desire to have you in that kingdom. Whoops, I went too far. There you can see some of the picture there. But I want to read that last verse. Verse 12. Is not this word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, Let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness. It would have been better that you wouldn't have called me at this time for the first resurrection. That's the mindset that we can get into, that Satan would love us to be in. That's where they were. Sore afraid. Been better off dead. What a bad attitude. No, we have a job to do, and he has a good grip on it, as I said in my last sermon. There's kind of a picture. You can see the little S line there through the wilderness. Down the Wadi, actually. And that's where they were headed. That's where they were headed. Why is it so important? You know, right now we're in camp there in typology at Ethan, probably tonight. And as we look at the principle, we have something to think about. Because now we're going to be going someplace different than the desert. Okay. Here's a 3D picture of the way across the water. And did you notice the land bridge? Now, I have a theory, and I stress the word theory, but when I look at the geography, being a builder, I guess, I look at the geography, and I realize that more than likely, this is me now, but more than likely when the flood came, it washed down from both sides of the mountains and made this high spot across the way. And there are people that literally know that that ground is not very solid when it's wet. It's interesting. They had drove 4-wheel wide pickups down in the area when the tide came up, and they walked away and they come back to get their truck. They could not. They were stuck. It sunk. But when the tide went back, the ground went firm. What's the spiritual lesson? Let's think about that for a minute. What is the spiritual lesson of this ground that gets solid when it dries up a little bit? And when it's wet, it's hard. You can get stuck in it. You have to have spiritual knowledge. You have to have spiritual knowledge to go through on dry ground. You have to have it. Otherwise you get lost, sunk in the mud. Now, let's go to Exodus 14:13. And Moses said unto the people, Fear not. They were terrified. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will show you today. For the Egyptians whom you have seen today, you shall see no more again, no more forever. Think about it, spiritually into the future. These enemies that came against you will be dust under your feet. That's what it says in Zechariah and Malachi. The principle is there. Dust under your feet. I find it interesting in the New Testament when the Messiah tells the disciples to go out and they are rejected, to take their sandals and shake the dust off of their feet. Interesting, as they witness against those people. Verse 14, and the Lord shall fight for you, and you shall hold your peace. In other words, shut up, Frank. Do the job. Don't be complaining and belly aching. He's going to fight for you. Verse 16, but lift up thy rod, the authority that you have. Take control of your life. Don't let Satan and his demons and his workers and his angels bog you down. Pick up that authority. You got the authority. Use it. Stretch out thy hand over the sea and divide it. And the children of Israel shall go through on dry ground through the midst of the sea. They're going to go through. You and I are going to go through if we pick up our rod and divide all the troubles, all the things that Satan comes against us, throws against us, really. Verse 17. And I beheld, and I behold, and I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians that they will follow them, and I will give me honor upon the Pharaoh and upon his hosts and upon his chariots and upon his horsemen. None of the enemy will survive against the spiritual warfare that we're in. Yes, we haven't made it to that point yet. We're still in the battle. We're still fighting the fight. Today, like I said, we're basically going to be encamped at Ethan, waiting. Well, let's look at what it says here. Verse 18, and the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, and I have begotten me honor upon Pharaoh and upon his chariots and upon... Who's getting the honor? You? No. It's the one that delivered you. That's where the honor belongs. And to him only, really. Verse 19, and the angel of God which went before the camp of Israel. Did you catch it? The angel went before you, before the camp of Israel, and removed and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud went before their faces and stood between them. And it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel, that was a cloud, a darkness to them, but gave light by night to these, so that one came not near to the other. I wonder what that's talking about, spiritually speaking. They're in darkness. They can't even talk to one another. They're so messed up. Really? Isn't that the truth? Today, when we look at the world of carnality, you take God's law out of people's minds, they lose complete common sense. All we have to do is look at politics today. I don't want to get into politics, but that's all you got to do. You can see the common sense is gone when you don't stand on the principles of God. Interesting. Interesting. And Moses stretched out his hand, verse 21, over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night. Why east? Why all night? Good question, Frank. Anybody got any answers? Why would it be an east wind? Okay, it's going to dry up the mud. Dry it up. It's got to dry it up.
He's coming from the east.
He's coming from the east. Very good point. Every day we see the sun rising in the east. Right? Prophesying. Every day the Messiah is going to come from the east and light up the whole world with his truth. Very interesting. Again. All right. Even all. So these Egyptians are there, but we have a problem. They have a problem. Verse 26, and the Lord said unto Moses, stretch out the hand over the sea, and the waters may come again upon the Egyptians and upon the chariots. So what's happening? I already alluded to it. what's happening. Spiritually speaking, today we need to pick up our authority, and it'll crush the enemy, destroy him. If we don't pick it up, they become stronger. The authority that God gave you and I is immense, a lot more than I can even comprehend or even try to explain. It's going to destroy this whole governmental system that's up on the face of the earth today. It's going to be destroyed. And he's going to take control of the reins. Remember, we were harnessed? We were harnessed into that. In other words, we can't get out. But did you realize when a horse is harnessed, or a mule or a donkey is harnessed, who's doing the controlling? Very interesting. Are we a willing participant in this journey? Very interesting. Submit thyself. And Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to its strength when the morning appeared, and the Egyptians fled against it. But the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. Verse 28. Oops, I moved the mouse again. There we go. Verse 28. And the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen. And all the hosts of the Pharaoh came into the sea after them, and there remained not so much as one of them. Not even one. Not even one. And Israel saw that great work which the Lord did upon the Egyptians, and the people feared the Lord. They were afraid. Now they're fearing the Lord. They were afraid of the Egyptians. Now they're afraid of God. And believed the Lord, and that's capitalized Lord there. That's actually talking about the name of the Messiah, Yeshua. But God has hid that really through the years for a purpose, so that people can be deceived, so you don't have to destroy them. The Red Sea crossing, there's a picture of it. You can kind of see again that aerial picture of where they were going to cross that sea, how that kind of comes to a point. I showed you that bridge a little earlier. And that's what I was saying to you. It seems to me, and like I said, that's me, but looks like there was a great force of earth being moved into a position, planning ahead. Even if he didn't do it that way, he created it that way. He has that peninsula. Here's a better picture of how it really looked at that time. You know, when the physical Israel, I don't think we can get the picture in our mind very good, so I'm going to try to bring it a little brighter. When they came down through that wadi, they couldn't see where they were going because of the curves and the twists, and they could see a little distance, but they couldn't really see where they were going. And there's actually evidence that there was big rocks in the way that physical Israelites had to push them off to the side so they could get down through that wadi. Now that's very interesting to me. What does that tell you spiritually? What should it tell us spiritually, really?
You gotta get stuff out of your way to keep you from going.
Yes, we have in our walk, we have to push big stuff out of our way. But they didn't do it one person. It had to be a team effort to move those big rocks. We need a team effort. That's why it's so important that we gather ourselves together on the Sabbath days and the holy days and the high days, and so that we can come together and gain strength and power and might by rubbing shoulders with other brethren. See, it isn't just a one-way journey, a one individual. We're in this together. We're in this together. We're not standing alone. We have each other, and we also have the Messiah. Where there is strength, there's a lot of power. Where there's numbers. If we just have a little cord, one little thread, I was thinking about that the other day. You know, if we just have this one little thread and it's going to break, they were talking about, Rob was talking about fishing, and how that did, you know, some of these fishes could weigh, what was it, 300 pounds, you said? Or more. Well, that takes a pretty good fishing line. It's very interesting. So how do you get that? Well, you wrap another line on and another line on, and you wrap another line on, and you end up with a strong cable that'll withhold what you're looking for. And you can use that negatively or positive, and it's still a good lesson. You can use a strong cord together, fitly together, the church of God, and be strong. Or Satan can use it if he's united and coming against you in many different ways. On the job, through your friends, through your relatives, through your enemies, all at one time. I've had that happen, actually. One day, thinking he's got all kinds of power. But you got the bigger cable. Especially if you got somebody to lean on with you. See, that's why it's so important that we have brethren. We need to have people to lean on sometimes. To do what? To hold us up. It could even be an angel. It could be a little baby. Or it could be an enemy. Did you think about that? Sometimes the enemies say the right thing and it spurs you on. I had that when I was wrestling in high school. The more resistance they gave me, the harder I fought. That's building that cable. That was kind of in my personality. Mark kind of talks about that today. Don't push me in a corner, or I'll fight. And I won't fight very weakly. It'll be aggressively. So that's going to God. Literally, I've stepped between people 3 times, well, not 3 times, probably twice as tall as me fighting, and told them, and they were brethren, I'm telling you, quit it. And he says, one of them says, well, that's just Frank stepping between us. No, it wasn't just Frank stepping between them. I stepped between them with the power and the might of God. His authority. Stop this foolishness. Realize you are brethren. Why are you destroying one another? See that man in the picture? Walking there. As I started out, sometimes we don't really realize where we're going and how much power we have to get there and what it's going to take to accomplish the end time or the end result. All we can see is this big wall of water on each side of us, but it's our pathway. It's the pathway that He put us on. You notice the dry ground? Walking through there, that wall of water. Very interesting. So where are we going? Well, let's look a little bit here. I've got some words that I've put up here. The journey is up to us. We must trust and believe that He's taking us where we need to be as an individual. In our walk to where? I got up there the kingdom of God, but I want to add to that some. On our walk to holy, righteous character to arrive at the kingdom of God. We can, even Paul said, I could see through the glass dimly. That's what he said. But remember this, if you keep your eye on the prize and the one that's going to get you there, you win. It's a promise. It's a promise that is beyond the physical world. This journey that we're on here in day 4, in the wilderness, turning to go down the dry wadi, heading to the little island before we crossed. Well, it's not really an island, it's a peninsula. Before we cross, I want us to realize that before we cross into the kingdom of God, we have a journey to do, and there's a lot of war to be done. The actual war has been won, but the battle, we're still in it. We're in it every day. But we win. Remember that. As I've said many times to different brethren, I don't know exactly where God's taken me, but I know He's got my best interests at heart. And I will be there with His power and His might. With that, I'll conclude. See you, Sandy. Bye.